Yeah, file item 25. This would be your last bill,
Correct.
and we have a quota. You only can have 3 bills pass this committee and one. and the chair gets to pick.
Oh.
Shucks. First of all, let's start off with accepting the amendments as listed on page 4 in the analysis.
Yes. Yes, I accept the committee amendments that help clarify the language.
As listed in Amendment 1 on page 4 in the analysis. Very good. Good start. So go ahead and begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Assembly Bill 1201 requires the California Department of Fish and Wildlife to develop and initiate an initiative, a science-based approach that helps address predation by non-native species on endangered delta species. With me today to speak in support is Kathy Cole with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, also Paramount as well.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Kathy Cole with the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. It is well known that striped bass and other non-native fish in the Delta prey on salmon and smelt. Failure to manage fish species that are known to prey on native species is on its face inconsistent with state policy as set forth in our state environmental laws. Objective and comprehensive focus on all stressors in the Delta is a must. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has gone on record identifying predation as a key factor contributing to the decline of Sac River winter run Chinook salmon, Central Valley spring run Chinook salmon, and Central Valley steelhead. In addition, a review of the available U.S. Fish and Wildlife literature on predation concludes that striped bass predation on salmon and steelhead is an important stressor warranting action. AB 1201 comports with MET's broader support for more management decisions regarding the Delta be based on science and not popularity or intuition. The plan called for in AB 1201 would focus resources on hotspots in areas of the Delta that can test and implement science-based strategies to manage the predator problem. Doing nothing is not an option. This bill will put the responsibility on the appropriate state agency to manage a statewide problem, and we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cole. Second witness.
Madam Chair, George Miller on behalf of Wonderful Farming, formerly Paramount Farming, a member of the Coalition for Sustainable Delta. I want to say that how much we appreciate our work with the committee staff, the Golden Gate Salmon Association, and working with all the interested parties on some of the amendments that I believe are reflected in the last week. With us, we have Chuck Hansen, fisheries biologist, and to answer any questions the committee may have as regards to predation on species in the Delta, both native and non-native.
Mr. Miller, your work may not be over because if this bill moves out of committee, my understanding is the Golden Gate Salmon Association still has issues with this.
Correct.
That we hope will be resolved by the time it gets.
And we've been working with them. I think we have been able to ameliorate a number of their concerns. I think there are some concerns regarding the funding issue and whether it's funding issue by outside interest or parties.
We're going to hear from them, and I just wanted to hear from you that you're going to continue to work with them as well.
Certainly.
All right. So other people in support of this measure? You're here for questions, correct? The other gentleman, yeah.
Madam Chair, members, Monica Miller on behalf of the Santa Clara Valley Water District in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Other people in support?
Valerie Nair for the California Chamber of Commerce in support.
Mark Thiessen with the Gualco Group on behalf of the Kern County Water Agency, Modesto Irrigation District, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, and the Zone 7 Water Agency, all in support. Thank you.
Good morning. Cindy Tuck with the Association of California Water Agencies in support.
Lauren Hayjick on behalf of California Citrus Mutual, California Fresh Fruit Association, California Growers Association, California Cotton Ginners Association, Friant Water Authority, and Western Ag Processors Association in support.
You had a different one from the past list in there, didn't you? Friant, yeah.
Danny Merkley, simply from the California Farm Bureau Federation, in support.
Madam Chair, Ed Manning on behalf of Westlands Water District and San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority in support.
Madam Chair and members, Tricia Geringer, Agricultural Council of California, in support.
Good morning, Chair Pavley. Ron Davis on behalf of Eastern Municipal Water District in support. Thank you.
Good morning, Beth Alasso on behalf of Inland Empire Utilities Agency, Cucamonga Valley Water District, and Irvine Ranch Water District, who couldn't be here, in support.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members. Glenn Farrell, San Diego County Water Authority, in support.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in support? How about opposition to the bill? We've got a couple people coming up, or one person coming up. If you would provide him, Mr. Nelson, some space up here. I'm guessing the Golden Gate Salmon Association?
Correct. Madam Chair, members of the committee, Barry Nelson with the Golden Gate Salmon Association. Can I pass this letter to your staff? We have, as has already been mentioned, been working with the author, and I think we've been making some progress, but the hour is late, and as the author pointed out, we haven't yet resolved all of our issues. We do, at this point, have an opposed unless amended position. I think we've been making progress on making sure that there's a transparent process that involves interested stakeholders and a couple of other issues. I'd like to very briefly mention 3 concerns. First is we'd like to make sure that the bill ensures that there will be independent scientific input in this process. The department has done that to date, but the panel that they created to give them an input at the beginning of the process, my understanding, has been disbanded. We'd like to make sure that there's a process to make sure that independent scientific analysis is incorporated, not just at the beginning of this process, but as it moves forward.
And this is under the umbrella of Fish and Wildlife?
Yes, it could be done through the Delta Independent Science Board. They initially convened a completely independent panel that I don't believe is continuing at this point.
Okay.
So that's one concern, making sure that we have ongoing independent scientific analysis. The second concern is making sure that the bill requires the legislature to act before implementation moves forward. The bill was amended recently, and we're concerned that it would allow for partial implementation if outside parties funded a portion of the department's final recommendations, but not all of them. We think it's appropriate for the legislature to provide oversight and to, frankly, make sure that the final results of this process are implemented in a fair and reasonable way. And then finally, funding. We're very concerned. The department's doing a lot on predation management already. They've undertaken a study of more than $1 million. They've released another $1 million in grants funding. We're concerned that this not divert additional funds from priority activities at a time when salmon resources are really in trouble. Those are the issues that we think we still need to make progress on: the legislative oversight, independent science, and funding.
And the risk of partial implementation, and that relates to the funding.
Legislative oversight.
Got it. Got it. And I hope that will happen by the time it gets to appropriate.
Well, I think our goals are the same. We want more salmon. They want more salmon. And I do think in terms of more inclusive, open, independent, I think we're very willing to work on that.
How do we deal with the partial funding issue or concern?
I'm not sure about the
Well,
concern
I guess,
is that based on the letter.
Private sector would be funding part, and only part of the project gets completed, but there's no other funding to complete it.
I think we need to look at that and discuss that. And I think we're open to some thoughts that I have are that if there was a private sector funding, whether there was a foundation that came in and funded, whether it was like the Lucille and Hewlett-Packard Foundation or what have you, or some other foundation or some other group that came in and funded, they not direct where those funds go, and let Fish and Wildlife, let them determine. They're the scientists. This is why we are saying let's take a science-based approach to this. Let them determine how best to use the funds and where they think it'll best serve the needs of restoring the populations in the Delta. So that, I think that would maybe hopefully ameliorate some of their concerns as to regards to cherry picking bits and pieces of it by private groups. But, I think we're
So,
open
Mr.
to those
Nelson, I'm gonna have my
discussions.
staff follow this as it moves into appropriations and see if we can accommodate as many of your concerns as we can, okay?
Appreciate that.
All right. Any other people in opposition to this bill? Yeah, there's two people that can speak, yes.
My name's John Beutler. I'm Conservation Director for the Allied Fishing Groups, representing some 30 groups and sport fishing businesses across the state of California and thousands of anglers who are opposed to this legislation. For the past 30 years, I have personally worked to help restore all the sport fisheries and the aquatic ecosystem of the Bay Delta estuary. What we find is that some information by the proponents of this bill has been cherry-picked. It's quite concerning, and I want to share just 3 items with you if I can. First, the Coalition for Sustainable Delta in July of 2010 and 3 water districts lost a suit in federal court, Judge Wanger's court, because they were not relying on peer-reviewed science. And what I want to talk to you about today is peer-reviewed science and the necessity of having it, because that science has been reviewed by other scientists to establish that the processes by which they came to their conclusions are valid scientifically. And that's a critical juncture. Judge Wanger ruled against the Coalition for Sustainable Delta, saying that they had no peer-reviewed science to base their case on. In addition, the National Academy of Sciences and the science panel convened by the State Water Resources Control Board in 2010 arrived at the same conclusion based on peer-reviewed science, saying that there was no evidence whatsoever that striped bass predation in the estuary had any population impact on any species listed under the Endangered Species Act. If there's no population impact, we're not talking about something that is critical to the survival of salmonids or any other species, as has been often intimated with people trying to use non-peer-reviewed science to find what we consider to be a scapegoat for the problems that exist in the estuary. Secondly, we don't believe it's prudent to have the California Department of Fish and Game undertake this study. They are underfunded, understaffed. They may or may not have the expertise to conduct this kind of science that's should be required under the bill. And they have suffered huge problems with trying to come to grips with the drought that has basically destroyed a great deal of what remains of the fisheries dependent upon the Bay Delta estuary and its tributaries. On the other hand, the Delta Science Board has a composition that we would respect with credibility. There are nationally prominent scientists with expertise in this area, and their responsibilities include oversight of the science, the research, the monitoring, and the assessment programs that support adaptive management of the Delta and its aquatic resources. In short, they have the expertise, they have the charge.
And
why?
if you could,
Excuse me.
sum up,
Okay, I am going to conclude with, we believe that legislation will spend valuable human and fiscal resources unnecessarily as it's now written. We believe that the paucity of resources we have available to tackle the huge problems that have destroyed the Bay Delta estuary's productivity and its fisheries would be a much better expenditure of funds than one that has been said by all the creditable scientists that we have seen through peer review work and through the other hearings that we've been to. The least important stressor in the system is a stressor that has no population impact on any of the fisheries listed under the ESA. Our question is, then why are we doing this? Thank you for the time.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciated. My takeaway is it's not only who's doing the independent study, but the peer review and making sure it's done. And we know the drought has caused a lot of the stress in the Delta. We've had studies in the past, so as this bill moves through to appropriation, some of these fundamental questions may need to be reviewed again on who does it, peer review, integrity of the process. And with that, anyone else in opposition? I would like to excuse the witnesses for the proponents, excuse them, and questions by members of Assemblymember Salas, or a motion. Been moved by Senator Hertzberg. Any questions or comments?
Just,
yeah. I'm sorry, Senator Woke isn't here because I always appreciate her advice when it comes to the Delta.
well, I'm not Senator Wolk, but I'll do my
But
best.
I also appreciate.
Talk about ocean waters and
Yes.
oil spills. I'm your woman.
Salmon, all that is good. But I also appreciate the advice and opinion of the good member from Santa Barbara.
I'm not quite sure what to say. Let me just ask a quick question. Given the concerns expressed by the opposition and the fact that this work is being done at least in some level, and the paucity of funding available for what is becoming a bigger and bigger problem with the drought, why do you feel that this bill is necessary, particularly when it comes to the work that's being done by these other folks?
Yeah, no, I mean, the opposition, I think the goals are aligned, right? We want to look at a science-based approach, and we want to look at all the stressors, and I think we can work that out. I think that will be done. Overall, when we're looking at the entire water infrastructure for the entire state and some of these things that come into play, we want that science-based information. I've never known this body to reject any type of science. And so, I welcome that and actually look forward to that. But I think this will help be a part of the puzzle, right? The entire water issue is a puzzle that we're all trying to fit all the pieces to. So whether it's an issue in the Delta, or it's an issue even down south in LA or in Oxnard or Camarillo, this all fits in. And I think having that science and allowing the department to do their work to do that is going to help us figure out this puzzle together.
And may I inquire, Madam Chair, were the author's amendments or the suggested amendments taken, all of them?
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
So there was a motion by Senator Hertzberg. Would you like to close?
No, thank you for the discussion, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
And I'd like to make sure you continue to work on this when it goes through the Appropriations Committee. Some of the suggestions and recommendations, I think, had a lot of validity to them.
Mm-hmm.
And the motion would be do pass as amended and refer to the Committee on Appropriations.
Senators Pavley.
Aye.
Pavley, aye. Stone. Allen. Hertzberg. Aye. Hertzberg, aye. Hueso. Jackson. Jackson, aye. Monning. Vidak.
Aye.
Vidak, aye. Wolk. It is 4. It's on call.
We have 4 votes. It is on call.